The following Conscious Consumer Network recording of a live broadcast is available to purchase in high definition at ethymarket.com. Support free and independent media by becoming a CCN pledger. For €10 a month, you can have unlimited access to CCN high definition downloads at ethymarket.com. Ethymarket, the ethical marketplace for conscious consumers.
Welcome to another fast ride at CCN, and yes, strap your asses in. We're going to be flying at 10,000 feet today. I don't want anybody losing any limbs today because, anyways, my guest that's coming on today, we've been sharing notes, comparing notes, bantering back and forth across the planet for the last couple of years. Curtis brings a different flavor. He's not from this planet, I don't think. I tell you what, I call him the Magic Man because when he created, if anybody has not seen the Divine Proportion Claim, it's one hell of an incredible document. It's a mind blower. I mean, it'll make the hairs on the back of your head stand up when you start reading it and getting it. It's one hell of a ride. I mean, Curtis, when we went through that door, I was like, the first 3 weeks we were just talking about the damn DNA, and then all of a sudden I hadn't talked to you, 5 days, and then you said, Peter, are you sitting down? And I said, why? Have you ever heard of the Divine Proportion? And then all of a sudden, that's when it really grew legs and came into its own. So, folks, this is a spiritual walk we're all on. We've been going down this road for quite some time. We're trying to give some finality. We're trying to close the doors to the mayhem that's been controlling us in this control construct since birth, because they stole our birthright. And technically, they didn't steal it, but technically, Curtis, I say they did, because if Mama would have known, she wouldn't have given us over. I don't think. What do you think?
Well, hi, everybody.
I'm sorry. This is Curtis,
No, here's the thing: is I don't even know where to start right now because it's been a couple of months since I spoke to anybody out in the open. But as far as stealing a birthright, the word is, and I know don't say it, but the word is expilatio. That's what they did. They stopped. They interfered with a succession. It's something that was supposed to be yours. You never received it, or somebody stepped in and said, "No, I'll take care of that until this guy or gal can figure this stuff out." Nobody ever figures it out. They get to control your life pretty much for the rest of your life. You don't even know what happened. Yeah, you go under the care of the Roman Catholic Church, and the federal government acts as your papa, as fiduciary to the Roman Catholic Church property that FDR actually handed to the church in 1933 through his inaugural address when he says, "Today is a day of national consecration." He actually made America holy ground in 1933, and nobody blinked. So that's really what happened. And then a few months later, they started issuing American birth certificates. So actually, the birth certificated person is holy ground. That's what it is. He created a church. He created a place that he could call church, and then, of course, he could separate the public lands in church and state. That's what they did. They separated church and state through a piece of paper called a certificate of live birth and a certification of birth. That being said, I just wanted to get that out there because that's what's happened. By the way, before I even forget, a friend of mine from Ohio called the other day, and he actually he told me that what they found in Ohio at the county/parish office was that the birth certificated person, just like I said a year ago, is female. So all the the DNA to the birth certificated person, whether your name is Peter Eugene or Curtis Richard Kallenbach, if it doesn't matter what it is, it's all female. So all the American birth certificates are for females only, because at the county level, the woman actually said, yes, that is female DNA. So so we have proof that it's female DNA, which is the separation of the male from the female, the state from the church, and all that stuff. And finally, I got to get this all out before I forget it. Yeah, here we go. Peter said it was going to be fast. It's going to be faster than fast. De facto. Nobody knows what de facto is. I mean, everybody's worried about this stinking giant behemoth de facto government. It doesn't exist, folks. There's a republic out there. It still exists, but the problem is everything is based upon fact in these federal rules of civil procedure courtrooms. Fact, indicia, whatever you want to call it. It's all about the facts, just the facts, ma'am. Just like you said in Dragnet in the 1960s, just the facts, ma'am. Nobody cares about the truth. This is about fact. And what are the facts? Who controls the facts? You make a claim, and can you prove it? Can you prove it on paper? How many people you know out there? I ask the question to everybody you know. Can you prove you're alive on paper?
Yep.
Nobody can.
Right.
Nobody, unless you have an authenticated birth record in your physical possession, you cannot prove you are alive. Yep. You can't prove you're here. You can't prove you're alive. And by the way, that piece of paper is called a fact, and ultimately that piece of paper is called knowledge. Now let me go backwards a little bit. What does de facto mean? Of fact or in fact. So let's bring this in so people can understand what the government of or in fact is. Whoever holds the facts is the government. If somebody's holding a title or a deed to your land, then they govern that land. You can do whatever by their permission, but ultimately they're the government for that land if they hold title or deed to that land. What if they held title or deed to your physical body? That's what we're talking about here. That's the government de facto is nothing more than who has evidence of their claim. That's it. That's simple. So when you go into a courtroom, for whatever reason, if you're brought in, if you're asked to show up, if you're invited, it's because somebody has a piece of paper in their possession that says you're trespassing across their property. And the problem is they have a piece of paper that says you are, and you have no way to prove that you're not. That's called the certificate of live birth or birth certificate.
And that's the whole point of this equation. It's a mathematical equation, because at birth, it started the hypothecation, and that's what I like what Jonah's saying. He goes, that can be proven must be proven. So if you're hanging in that court and you're hanging in the wind and you don't have a title to stand on, i.e. the title in hand, well, guess what? You are trespassing against this estate, and they're going to draft you for performance and keep the game going. But once you have the facts in hand, I have the facts. Nothing but the facts. Well, here's my authenticated, secured interest in this title, and nobody else has got it except me, and that's huge.
Yeah, indicia. I always go to Black's Law as quickly as I can. Indicia. And this is out of Black's Fifth on page 694. What is indicia? It says signs, indications, circumstances which point to the existence of a given fact as probable but not certain. Let's go to cause of action real quick, because every case begins with a cause of action. Let's see what cause of action says. All this stuff connects, but ultimately it comes down to whose is it and who can prove it. That's really all it is. Cause of action, here it is. The fact or facts which give a person a right to judicial relief. Let me say that again. That's the first line. The fact or facts which give a person a right to judicial relief. If somebody says you're trespassing, by the way, that's indicia. So, but think about this. If somebody says you're on my property, they better be able to prove it. If I go into a parking lot, let's say I'm down in Naples, Florida, by the way, I just got back from there, so that's why I know this is true. But if I go into a parking lot in Naples, Florida, there's a lot of Rolls Royces in there. There's a lot of, $200,000, $300,000 cars. There's, anything you can imagine is available down there because there's so much money. But here's my point. If I go into a parking lot and point at a Rolls Royce and claim that car to be mine, and I call the police and I say, that car is mine, they're going to say, really? Can you prove it? I'll say, well, it's mine. The point is that if I don't have a title to that car, they're going to laugh at me. If I say, arrest that man that's getting into that car, they're going to laugh at me and probably even arrest me for a breach of the peace or something. The point is that I can't evidence my claim. So let's go back to this. Whoever holds the paper, because this is a two-dimensional paper world, and it's all about facts. That's why it's a government de facto. Whoever holds the paper is the government of that property. They govern it by fact. Here we go. The court you get invited to a court. Why? Because somebody made a claim that you have trespassed across their land in some way. Doesn't matter what it is. It's the Roman Catholic Church, basically through the federal government acting as fiduciary. That's what happens. They say, hey, we caught this guy out there using your land. Oh, really? Yeah. So we brought him in here. We invited him in here to prove that it is not yours, or it is his. The problem is the Roman Catholic Church, since your arrival, i.e. birth, since you arrived here, the Roman Catholic Church, they performed, they took what the left behind matter and they created a piece of paper that identifies that DNA. It's mother's DNA. It's MERE. It's mirror. It's the matrix is the mother's DNA. It's the mother's lineage, but that mother's DNA matches not only the afterbirth, but it matches 50% of your existence. I mean, Peter, I'm looking at you right now. You can't see me, but the thing is that if I came into that room where you're at right now and I had title, I had the evidence that I own, or basically it is my property. All of your female DNA, all of your mother's DNA inside your body is mine, and I say I'm here to claim it.
Yeah.
So if I could extract that DNA, your father's DNA would fall to the ground like an empty suit. So in other words, you need both mom and dad's DNA to be alive.
Right.
If in other words, without me, without my permission for you to use your mother's DNA, you're dead. In other words, you're not even alive unless by my permission, because I have title to your mother's DNA. That's what the Roman Catholic Church is saying. We have title to this afterbirth DNA, which is female, but it's your mother's DNA. So it's 50% of your existence. Now what happens? In other words, think about how weird this is. The movie The Exorcist is about possession. Right now you are being possessed by the Roman Catholic Church. That's possession. When you get an authenticated birth record that gives you in your possession, in your physical possession, the title, now they cannot make a claim, and this is how it finishes up. If you have no claim, no legitimate claim, there is no cause. Without a cause, there is no case. So when you have all the evidence as a private man now, because when that evidence is in possession of the Roman Catholic Church, that's an orphan or foundling child. That's a charge of the state. It's a child that is a ward of the court. Well, that's public. But when you get possession of that document, that authenticated birth record in your possession, that's private. So now the court has a problem, because when you stand your ground, on what grounds? When you stand your ground is your DNA. It's the land of your soul. It's the land of your spirit. That's your physical body. When you have possession of that authenticated birth record in your hands, you can actually say, foul, Your Honor, with all due respect, this is a private matter, should never be discussed in the public. We can either go to chambers or you can dismiss this, but either way, we're going to have a problem with this. I will not speak of, in fact, we cannot commingle these two properties. These two ideas do not they do not commingle. So it's over with. No claim, no cause, no case. It's that simple, but you need to know what this shit actually is. And you don't have to do any dance for these people anymore. You don't dance to their tune.
That's right.
They don't call the shots anymore, because you hold all the cards. The cards are just pieces of paper that say, whose is it and can you prove it? Yes, it's mine and I can prove it, and it's private. So this better get out of the public right now. Otherwise, we're looking at a tort, invasion of privacy, a tort.
T-O-R-T.
T-O-R-T.
Not T-A-R-T. Not like
I figured you would go there.
You knew you opened the damn door.
I did. I didn't want to go down that path so quickly, but here we are.
Yeah, I love all the sweet tarts on the planet.
And let's go, as long as we're just talking about somebody making a false claim or somebody making a claim against your property. When it's in your hands, you have all the evidence. Now let's think about this for a second. Let me explain what I mean by afterbirth or DNA that's left behind at the hospital. Peter, you're sitting in that room right now. I can see you. I walk into the room with a shears, and I cut off your right index finger. You're standing up. The index finger drops to the ground. Yeah, that's your left one. There you go.
My other right.
Yeah. Well, no, that's stage right. Sorry,
Yeah.
not stage right. Anyway, here's the thing: is that when that finger drops to the ground, it's separated, it's severed. It's still a piece of the whole, but it's called several. Several. A lot of people heard the word several states. Yes, keep that in mind. Several and sever are the same word, same as separated. So here we go. That finger's laying on the ground. I pick up the finger, which is part of your whole body, and I walk that finger into the District of Columbia. Now there is physical DNA in two different locations. Location, disposition is what just occurred. I just repositioned or dispositioned that DNA. It's a situs. It's a situation. So I've actually changed. I've placed you in two different locations with DNA. Now your whole body is in wherever you're at. But I have a piece of your DNA in the District of Columbia. Now here's the problem. If I have title to your mother's DNA and I have in that finger in my possession, I have a defective title. I have a piece of the property, but I don't have the whole of the property. So but I do have title and I have the DNA. And so I invite you into my courtroom. Yep. You with the severed finger, with the cut off finger, now match up. In other words, you're similar. You're a piece of or a part of the greater. I mean, the greater. So when you show up, you take my defective claim and you perfect it by showing up. You perfect it. So now I have a perfect claim. You volunteered your position, your body. You volunteered to connect it to my finger. Now I have a legitimate claim against whoever you at this point. Well, you just become surety. That's really all it amounts to. You become surety. But what I'm getting at is that the afterbirth is no different than the finger. The afterbirth is something that was separated from you. It's 50% of your existence because it's your mother's DNA. It's never actually been a piece of your body. It's never actually, I mean, other than an umbilical, it connected, but it never actually was your body. Your body, you have 2 arms, a head, and 2 legs, which is the 5-pointed star. It's also the divine proportion, just so people know. It's also the Vitruvian man, which is why they use that figure. But the afterbirth, what is the afterbirth? Is only mother. Look at mother, according to the Roman Catholic Church, mother provides substance where father provides form. But it takes form and substance to create the body that I'm looking at. Look at so mother by herself, without father's sperm, she produces a certain just matter of substance. And look what she produces by herself: a blob on the floor. But when dad's DNA is involved, a whole human is put together. So mother's DNA devoid of father's DNA is pure substance. Father gives it form. Without father, it's just a blob on the floor. So mother's DNA on the floor is just mother's DNA. There's no father. There is no biological DNA of father involved in the afterbirth, which makes it pure female. It's a female product. Now, again, I'm trying to clarify this for people, because when you realize that the birth certificate or the certificate of live birth is for the left behind matter, it's not for you. It never was supposed to be for you. It's for the thing that was left behind, and that's the paper goes to the product that they have in the hospital. Mom carries you home in your swaddling clothes. You're never heard from again. So let's just explain one last thing. I know I'm talking fast, but you know what? People they can re-listen to this.
That's right. They can rewind.
That's right. So here we go. So here's why this is so important to understand. That everybody says, that's not my name, that's not me. They scream and holler about this in the courts, but what they don't realize is it absolutely is not them, but it relates to 50% of their existence. They are a relative to the debtor. They're relative to the debtor. So when mom lays with dad, dad's sperm merges with mother's ovum. That's fertilization. That fertilized product turns into a zygote, which is the first of your kind. It's you, basically, with mother and father's DNA. That's the end of dad's participation. I hate to say it. So dad then flies off back to the heavens, as any heavenly father would do, And then mother, what does she do? She, as that mass of cells, that zygote begins to divide and grow, she starts to, with her own DNA, not father's DNA, she creates a protective sac, a vessel for you to travel in. That particular vessel is actually called the amniotic sac. So the sac that mother creates with her DNA alone is that's the vessel you're traveling into this new realm. So
Right.
that's actually that's a piece of the afterbirth, and that's, again, it's pure female. When in a storm of birth, or they might call it a tempest biblically, but in the tempest of birth, the ship is your vessel, the amniotic sac that you're traveling in to this new realm is being thrown around against the rocks inside the mother's waters on the sea of mother, and you know what? Eventually, the ship breaks apart. And you fall overboard. Well, actually, you're born.
Yep.
you disappear forever. But you know what? The ship crashes across the rocks, and it shows up on shore. That vessel shows up on shore, but there's nobody in it. There's no cargo. There's no ship captain. What the hell happened to you? Well, you're missing. What do? They take the vessel that you didn't arrive in. You're still lost at sea. But they take that vessel. And that's what they title. I mean, at least on one level, they title that vessel, and that's the thing. That's the thing that gets the name. Remember, this is all ships are female, by the way, are they not?
Right.
Mr. Navy man.
Yep.
Yeah, they're female. Yeah. They're all female. And so, but the point is that this vessel, then, it has a missing. They know there was a captain, but they don't know who the captain was. So what do? They create a memorial for the missing man. Yep. That memorial is the all caps stone, or what most people now know as Minnesota 220. It's the memorial. It's for the memory of those that were on the vessel but are missing or gave their life while on the ride here to the new world.
Right.
So here you are, the pilgrim. You don't make it, or the Christian warrior, or whatever you want to call yourself. I know that neither of those actually fit, but so here we go. my point is that the captain is missing from the vessel, but they know there was a captain. So they create a memorial, a memorandum, a memory of the missing man, and that happens to be the all caps name. So that's the memorial that they set aside for the missing man. It's no different than, okay, we know that you were here, and we know that you're out there somewhere or you're dead. But either way, what we're going to do is we're going to set a place for you at the table, i.e., United States of America, and we're going to create a space for you. It's just like having a name tag on an empty chair. There's a chair waiting for you here in America, but you just haven't got here yet. Right. You haven't until you show up. There's an empty chair. It's a space, and this is and because it's a space, it's zero. It's a space holder. It amounts to nothing. It has nothing. There's no thing that's applicable to that all caps name. It's the ghost aspect. It's where the spirit of you is alive, but the body cannot sit in the chair. There's an empty chair because there's no DNA. There's no physical land there's no body attached to that memory. It's a memory. So and that's a big thing. And one last thing to that little bit of story that I just told. There's a movie out there with Tom Hanks, and it's called The Terminal.
Yep.
The Terminal is about a foreigner that is in an airplane traveling to the United States of America. He's all pumped about landing here and with all the opportunity. And while he's in the air, his country gets in a war. And so when he lands, when he finally gets to the airport, i.e. federal territory, when he gets to the airport, he doesn't have any valid documentation. So he's stuck in the federal territory known as airport because he can't get from the federal territory into the United States of America because he doesn't have the documents that allow him to cross that boundary. Well, the same thing happens in the hospital. The afterbirth character is stuck inside federal territory, i.e. corporate hospital, stuck inside federal territory because there's no documentation to get him out. Nobody actually declared that child, so brought him from the federal territory, i.e. hospital, into the United States of America. No, if you don't have an authenticated birth record, you never made it into America. You're still stuck in federal territory, just like that movie, The Terminal. You're stuck in the airport. You're stuck inside federal territory in a stateless position. And so what do? They give you a job inside the federal territory. They give you a place to stay, but you're always on the move. So in other words, you have no way to settle. You have no way to live. You have no way to provide yourself except as any other refugee would, living. It's the welfare state. That's what it is. Inside the federal territory, the hospital, every one of these stateless persons, i.e. birth certificated persons, have they're stuck until somebody goes and rescues them. In other words, jump through all the hoops and get the authenticated birth record. That authenticated birth record is you saving that stateless person, bringing them into the United States of America, where they now have rights instead of privileges. Inside the federal territory, it's nothing but privileges. But outside in the United States of America, that's where rights that's where the birth rights you were talking about right off the bat. When you have the authenticated birth record, you are that character is no longer stuck inside federal territory. And the proof of that is John Kerry, the Department of State, the Secretary of State, physically signing off, putting the federal seal on it, and then delivering it back to you. It's signed, it's sealed, and it's delivered back to you. Just like the song, signed, sealed, delivered, I'm yours. When you got that signed, sealed, delivered document in your private possession, you're no longer stuck in federal territory under the administrative fiduciary control of the federal government and under the Roman Catholic Church. You're no longer stuck under them either, because once you possess it, all you have to do from that point forward is stand your private ground. I'm taking a breath now.
Good. No, very good. And for those who are new to all this, folks, I'm just going to Kurt, I want to give a 5-second tour of the nickel tour on the birth certificate itself. And, I have a copy of mine. You've seen it. And it's ironic that mommy and daddy are separated on the same piece of paper. You got mommy to the right and you got daddy to the left, but the two shall never meet because, so folks, once I came out the canal, mommy did some paperwork with them in the public hospital, giving me over. It's ironic when I came out the vessel, her vessel, and became a new vessel, they actually put your little black footprints, and the reason they're black is you consider a decedent you never touched ground. I know this is a play in your head, but the reason they're black footprints is because you're considered a decedent, and then they go ahead and tap off the heel, the left heel. Curtis, we covered that, the third call, you and I were with Rena or whatever, we were talking about the DNA Guthrie card where they actually tap into the left heel, the sole, and grab some of your blood, put it on a DNA Guthrie card. So they're completing this whole cycle through these steps in the process. And they usually put you in the paper. Daddy never came forward to make a claim. He didn't know. I didn't know. Curtis didn't know. We didn't know. But it's trickery. It's black magic. However, but now that we know what we know, there's a way to go home. And we just have to correct our status. And that's what this is, literally a status correction, because as long as we're still playing in the public side, we're in their game, and then they can put out dictates. That's why all these people getting forced to get shots and their passes and all these, well, they're all sitting at the King's buffet table, and they didn't know they were supposed to do a push away. When I say King's buffet table, folks, I'm talking about if you're under the construct of the federal United States, your corporate boss called Obama can make the dictates because guess what? You're sitting at the buffet table and they don't like it when you throw meatballs at their head. So instead of being a belligerent, get the hell off and do a push away. You don't have to eat from the King's buffet table. You can set your own buffet table once you get free.
Well, what they do is nothing short. And I'm not, the thing is that once you really grasp this stuff, first I'm going to say something. You mentioned the paramount claim, i.e. the divine proportion document. That document evidences the truth of the matter. That's mom and dad, and basically that's showing that you have allodium to your physical existence. Allodium is a really, really important word for people to know. In fact, but that's what sadly there is no paper that proves that you are yours. Okay, but what they did is they did create a piece of paper at your arrival that works both sides of the fence. If it's in your possession, it's perfect because you are you're the very land that the document references. If it's in their possession, they have a finger, i.e., afterbirth, in their possession. They have DNA in their possession, so their claim is valid as well. But it's not as valid as yours. They need you to show up in the courtroom to perfect theirs. When it's in your hands, it is perfect.
Yep.
I hate to say it, but it's perfection when it's in your hands. Allodium, land held absolutely in one's own right, and not of any lord or superior. Land not subject to feudal duties or burdens. An estate held by absolute ownership without recognizing any superior to whom any duty or due on account thereof. See, when you have the document, it's all, and it just remain private. That, by the way, I'm not going to say that I'm correcting Peter, but I am. But here, there's no need for a status correction. When you have the grounds, when you have the document evidencing the land, i.e. the grounds, i.e. your DNA in your possession, you have standing. It's over with. You have made it to land. You have a physical body. You're physically here. And that's a man of standing. When you don't have a body, when you are part of a larger corpus, a different body, i.e. the Roman Catholic Church, you have no standing at all. And so trying to correct something that isn't broken, all it is remember, this is a government de facto. Who has the evidence? Who can prove their case? If they have the paper, they can prove it, and you can't. You're going to be fighting all your life. If you have the paper, it's over with. In fact, before I read one more thing, I want to say something about belligerent occupant and about the war. This war will go on for the rest of your life. This war between you and a Roman Catholic Church, until you understand what I'm talking about. When the war is over a hill, it's over a piece of ground, and that piece of ground is your physical body. If they have title to it, they're going to drag you into the field of battle, which is called the courtroom. If you have title to it, the war is over. The war is over in your possession. Now, here's what I'm getting at. When they possess the document, the original birth record, you are trespassing on their claimed property. In other words, when you're using your own body, they have a claim upon that land that your mother ultimately left behind for them, but they have a claim upon your body. It's part of the Christ Mass. And I'm not going to go down that path today unless I have to. But the point is that they have a legitimate claim through the afterbirth that they have a right to your land, your body, on the mother's side. And so the war is between you and the Roman Catholic Church, and that's the war for your soul. Because without the body, there is no place for the soul to reside. So think about this. If they have a title in their possession in the District of Columbia or wherever it's at, or even in Rome, let's say, if they have a title in their hands, is that document evidencing a residence outside of, in my case, Illinois? I mean, think wherever that paper is the residence. So if it resides in the District of Columbia through the Department of State with the federal government as fiduciary, just like it, I mean, when you see who signs off on it, where the hell was it? Where does that document reside? It resides with the Department of State in the United States, inside the District of Columbia. There's your residence, folks. When they have possession of the document, it resides in the District of Columbia, subject to the Bar Association and Roman Catholic Church in the United States and all that crap. But when it's in your possession on the soil of Illinois, in my case, it resides, its venue for all causes is in Illinois. When it's with me, it's Illinois. It's part of the Republic. When it's with them, it's not. So, I mean, you can see by whoever holds the paper, the government de facto is whoever has possession, which is 9/10 of the law. So think about that. The war is over when you possess the document. The war is over. You can no longer be considered a belligerent upon your own land. You can't. You're not a belligerent on your own property. You're a belligerent on somebody else's. You can't trespass across your own land. There's a law maxim. I'm gonna just brutalize this saying, but it's something to the effect that a man cannot be there are no servitudes upon your own land. You can't be a servant on your own land. So if you think that you can be, you're sadly mistaken. You can never volunteer to be a servant on your own land. And when you have evidence that the land is yours, all the servitudes, all the peonage, all the indenture, all that shit disappears. Start acting like the king.
Yes. The king is here. The king and I.
Yeah. So what do? They do what's called larceny. Larceny has so many different things, but larceny is obtaining possession of property by fraud, trick, or device with preconceived design or intent to appropriate, convert, or steal. That's what they do. That birth record gives them the opportunity, by your voluntary nature, to take your property from you. Now, they're going to call it voluntary, but it's ultimately larceny. If you possess a document, then it's larceny. Any action upon your property becomes larceny. Here's a really fun one. Think about the afterbirth, what's left behind on the hospital floor. Larceny of property lost, mislaid, or delivered by mistake. Here we go. A person who comes into control of property of another that he knows to have been lost, mislaid, or delivered under a mistake as to the nature or amount of the property or the identity of the recipient is guilty of theft if, with purpose to deprive the owner thereof, he fails to take reasonable measures to restore the property to a person entitled to have it. Folks, these people know. They know that nobody would ever agree to your DNA, 50% of your life being under the control of somebody else. They know that. But you know what? Just like the Godfather says in the movie, make him an offer he can't refuse. And the only offer you can't refuse is one you don't know was made.
Right.
Yeah. And so, I mean, if they make you an offer that says, Kurt, we're going to kill you unless you do this. If I don't really want to do it and I'm satisfied with them killing me, hey, I'm good. You know what? At least I can say no. But what if they make an offer, i.e., give me a different persona or a different world, a different government, a different whatever, without me knowing it, and I just step into the shoes of their character?
Yep.
Well, that's what's happened. They made me an offer I couldn't refuse because I didn't know it was ever made.
Right.
But anyway, it's larceny. It's larceny when it's in your possession. It's not larceny. It's volunteerism if it's in their possession.
Right.
It's a huge difference.
Yeah, but you got to know how to stand on your tile too, because I know some people who have authenticated, but they didn't know how to stand on their tile.
You have to. That's what I'm saying is that the paramount claim is so huge by itself. But it's not the same. It's not the same claim. The paramount claim is you claiming who the man I'm looking at right now. You're claiming mother and father DNA. That's the allodium to your living life. But but they created another piece of land that's associated or relative to your existence on your mother's side, and it's, you know what it is? It's your retarded half sister. I mean, it's retarded half sister because it's incapacitated. It doesn't have a brain. It can't take care of itself. It's actually always in a state of dying. They call it your sister state. That's the problem. It's called a sister state. It's one of the several states, meaning separated, or several, meaning severed from a greater whole. But it's all part of the same deal. This is all black magic, and it is sadly, and I'm not trying to make light of this, it's your retarded half sister on your mother's side. Yeah. That's what the afterbirth character is, and it is physically located in the District of Columbia, which is a foreign country, a foreign state.
Well, that's pretty interesting. The upside for me, I guess, is because we've been taking this ride for the last couple of years. I told you on the phone the other day, I have a certified copy that was put on the record in Washington State, my divine proportion claim. So they're not going to have any plausible deniability. And that, coupled with my authenticated birthright, I think the game is pretty much over at that point, Curtis.
Yeah, and again, like I tell people, the war is actually over. But you need to actually stand. Let's say I get called into a court case or whatever. Now, before I ever show up there, I'm going to write a few letters to evidence my possession, and it better go away, because my private time is precious.
Yeah.
And let me say that again. People don't realize it, but your time is private too.
Yeah.
I'm volunteering because Peter's my friend. I'm volunteering my time to this, but nobody can take my time or make a demand of my time. If the court invites you, it's still you're volunteering your time to show up there. And then, of course, when you're sitting there and they call out a name, it's a calling, a cattle call, or whatever you want to call it. They call out a name and you stand up. Every bit of conduct, everything you're doing now is volunteering in your property, your private property, into their claim. You're perfecting with every single thing you do. And so when I talk about time, I mean, think about this. Somebody pulls you over, some red lights flash behind you, and for whatever reason, somebody is about to trespass across your private time. If they stop you at the point of a gun and a badge, and they're implying that they have some authority, that is theft. That's larceny. It's larceny. They are now making a huge mistake, but only if you have an authenticated birth record in your possession, because now you can prove your case. Unless you can prove your case, it's not. In fact, you're not considered private. You are and you aren't. You're straddling the fence. It's a straddle. You're straddling the fence, and it's not a good place for a man to be. I tell you that.
No, yeah, brother, yeah. You put me in that friggin' domain. Yeah, it's sort of like riding a bicycle, you know. I hate when my foot would slip on the damn pedal.
Well, as long as you have a seat to fall back on, that's okay. My point is that this is all you keep saying, and I completely agree. Once you have the evidence in your possession, act like the king.
Yes,
you're the king. I don't like the word sovereign. I can't stand that word because nobody understands what it means. But the king, look at my sperm is part of my body, is part of my land. When it creates more land, i.e., son or daughter, that's part of my kingdom. And unless I tell my son and I give him his land, he's still under my control. I hate to say it, but I'm the king. And that's how we need to start acting. Instead of like a child, we need to act like the king. And by the way, the word estate, real or real, R-E-A-L, means both land and it means royal. Land and royal. So real estate is royal estate or landed estate. And you know what? If you don't have the deed to that land, you don't have anything. You're no thing. You don't have anything. You're zero.
Yep. Unbelievable. I mean, hey, it's only taken us 55 years to get here.
It'll be 55 in September for me, according to their Western Anno Domini calendar.
Hey, bro, and remember, you're going to get double nickels, just like Brother Peter. You're coming back home whole again. You got the double nickels. Yeah, you're twice the man you used to be.
Well, yeah, prior to that, I was only half the man.
That's right. We've been half wits, half baked, we've been numbskulls. Until we come back home whole again. Yeah, we've been separated from our age of majority. Well,
and that's the other thing is you have to have all of you in one place to be whole. I mean, to be majority. That's why it's a democracy. Democracy means, it's 51%. It's 51% of the vote. So let's just say, okay, I'm looking at a physical man, but let's just say that they don't see that. All they see is the spirit. In other words, you control the spirit, i.e. God, and the church controls the female, the female side, i.e. the church, and the state controls the male, the form, so the church and state are separated, and you're the spirit. So there's the church, i.e. the male. There's the state, i.e. The state is the male, the church is the female, and you are the spirit that moves. Now look at this. 100% is now divided in three different places. The male, the female, and the spirit. Or the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, if you want to look at it that way. But each one has a third of the vote, 33 and a third vote.
Right.
If you side with the church, that's 67% pretty much. If you side with the state, that's 67%. So whatever side you fall to, that's the side that wins the battle in the courtroom. Now, the problem is you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. It's not good for the state to win for you, and it's not good for the church to win for you. Either way, you're a surety.
Yeah.
So what you need to do is you need to get the paper that makes all 100% in your possession. I.e., if you can get the certification of birth, which is the state or the male side, if you get the certificate of live birth, which is the female side, or the DNA land side, the church side, if you possess both of those, if your state has two, you possess 100% of the vote.
Right.
In a democracy. And you know what? There you go. The whole idea is that we need to understand what the government de facto is. It's a government of facts. Whoever has the facts is the administrator over that land. If they have the facts, you lose.
Right. Well, I've got lots of facts. Yeah, my unconsenting, which I removed power of attorney. I've got the originals here, of course. I'm the custodian, and so I've got a lot of things I've done, Curtis, that will prove up my case, for lack of a better term. So that's the upside for me. And when I did unconsent, the nice part is I got to do it tax per queue internationally with their little goofy pink card. I was the man in its own right, and that's how it's operating. And I dealt with the man on the other side, or the woman, the Secretary of State or whatever, whoever I was unconsenting with. I put them in their man or woman capacity. When I did my documents, I wasn't addressing the fiction corporate construct. I directed all my stuff in a private communication. So it's not like they don't have it. I got proof they got it, because I've got the documents right here with the registered mail using the international pink card. And by the way, I like it when they zeroed me out, Curtis, when I did 30 of those, 2 years ago, 30 unconsentings and help some other folks too. So it's I can prove up everything I need to prove up. My case is very, very strong now, Curtis, and no need to fight, no need to go to war. I can prove up everything.
And that's the whole idea, is that, again, when you have when you have the documents and understand what they are, this is a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer because the judges, I got to say this, the judges don't care. What is the government? What is the government's only job? What is its only job?
To maintain for those who don't want to maintain for themselves.
Maybe today.
Yeah.
No, but the government's only job is to protect private property.
Right.
That's their only job. I mean, so all the cops out there, doesn't matter, state, county, whatever, municipal, doesn't matter. The government's only job is to protect private property. And this is the reason I brought this up. Whoever has the paper is the owner, in fact. If the Roman Catholic Church has the paper, the government's protecting the Roman Catholic Church. If you have the paper, the government's protecting you. So the cops, once you get this stuff all sorted out, then the cops are actually on your side. You need to make sure, I mean, seriously, if somebody breaches or breaks the close or trespasses across your land, now the United States government, i.e. the entire United States Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, is on your side to stop this. The federal marshals, everybody now is there to protect your private property.
Right.
Private property. And so that's the whole idea, is the government, they don't care who it is that they're protecting. It's a protection racket, don't get me wrong. But the point is that if you have the paper, they're on your side. If the Roman Catholic Church has the paper, they're on the Catholic Church's side. They don't care. Their job is only to protect private property. It's a government in fact. Who has the facts on their side? Who has the facts? Who can prove their case? Anyway, the authenticated birth record down in the lower left-hand corner has a bunch of different sightings, and one of them is Title 22.
Of course, part of the consciousness shift.
Yeah, foreign relations. It's Title 22, 2657.
It's right on the what comes back from John Kerry, what you're talking about.
Yes, and here it is. Here it is. This is the title: Foreign Relations and Intercourse. Intercourse means business, folks.
Yep.
Foreign relations and intercourse. Custody of seals and property. Custody. The Secretary of State shall have the custody and charge of the seal. By the way, that's lowercase s. The seal of the Department of State, and of all the books, records, papers, furniture, fixtures, and other property which on June 22nd, 1874, remained in and appertain to the department, comma, or were thereafter acquired for it. Remained. What is when a body's dead, or when there's a cadaver on the floor or whatever? What do they call that? The remains.
Yeah.
The afterbirth is remains.
Right.
And when it's left in the federal territory, it's part of that. It goes into the custody of the Department of State.
Right.
That's what I'm getting at here. And when they have custody of it, they have custody. They're custodians over your life until you get it back from them. And
right.
so what
then
they're signing,
yeah.
now you're the custodian of your own life, and now you're not part of the welfare state anymore. That's the point. Everybody stuck inside federal territory are stateless, and they're part of the welfare state. That's what it is. All of the persons that have not gone in, not fought the battle for their senses, and realize that there's a piece of paper out there that evidences their existence. It's called an authenticated birth record. When you have that in your possession, the war is over.
Yeah.
It's over.
Yeah, it's well, like I say, it's a huge step for most people. Curtis, I mean, like I say, we haven't been treading lightly on this topic, but it's actually very, very simple once they understand the fundamental concepts. It's we got left behind, and we're just coming back home to find our way back home. That's what this comes down to, folks. Because right now you're homeless, you're stateless, you're in a state of dysfunction because you haven't come back home, you haven't grown up yet. So this is what we're talking about. This is I know this is probably blowing most people's brains out there, but you know what? This is where we started, but there is a way out, and that's the whole point. So, but it's going to take a little heavy lifting for everybody to pay attention, and not everybody wants to be responsible, Curtis.
Very few people. Well, part of the responsibility is wanting to know the truth.
Right.
I mean, just there's, in fact, this may be the most important thing that I say all day, because people don't realize how important. I'm going to Black's Law right now.
Okay.
I was watching, and I know this sounds nutty, but I obviously I love music. Peter, you love music.
Yeah.
There's a documentary out there, and it's about the Eagles, the band, the Eagles. And Don Henley definitely knows what the hell's going on. He's an insider at this point, and I don't know how long he's been an insider. Maybe from the beginning, I don't know. But somebody asked him a question point blank about the song Hotel California. What is Hotel California about? And he just kind of smiled, and he said, ultimately, it's a very simple song. Of course it is. Yeah, right. He says it's just about the journey from innocence to experience. That's what he said. And I said, holy cow. Did he just say that? Now, of course, everybody listening to it right now, even everybody's confused, like, yeah, well, big deal, right? Big deal. No, it's beyond a big deal. It's the most important thing you'll ever hear in your life, because I'm going to read the definition to experience, and then I'm going to tell you that everybody that does not have an authenticated birth record is ignorant.
Yep.
And ignorance of the law, what?
It doesn't get you
it's no excuse. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. And so I'm about to tell you that everybody that does not have an authenticated birth record does not possess knowledge. Knowledge. Either you're ignorant or you possess knowledge. Ignorant or knowledgeable. Here we go. Experience. A state, extent, or duration of being engaged in a particular study or work, semicolon, and here it goes, the real life as contrasted with the ideal or imaginary. Let me say it again. The real life as contrasted with the ideal or imaginary. Remember, the word real means land or royal. So the real life is the physical, tangible life with a body. So the real life as contrasted with the ideal or imaginary. The word land. I'm going to back up just a little bit so I can explain the word.
Yep.
In the hospital, mother signs the document as informant.
Yep.
So she actually is creating what's known as information. She provides the information, which is an accusation, but it's called information. This information, when you go into Black's Law, into the legal terms, you'll realize that the word information and knowledge are the very same thing. They're the same thing. So information and knowledge are one and the same. They actually can be interchanged. What is the information that mother provides? The information is, in my case, Curtis Richard Kallenbach. That's called information. So so Curtis Richard Kallenbach, the individual birth name or title, however you want to look at it, is actually both information and knowledge. If I possess knowledge, I possess Curtis Richard Kallenbach.
Yes.
I possess information. It's in my possession. I have knowledge. I now possess knowledge. I'm no longer ignorant. If I'm no longer ignorant, I'm experienced. And when you realize that the word experience, when it comes to testimony, the only testimony that holds any weight is testimony of what? Of an expert. And the only one that's considered an expert is the one that has experience on the material in question. If you possess the knowledge, you are the only one that can speak about that property. Nobody else can. In fact, that's why possession of that information, possession of the authenticated birth record, is possession of knowledge. You're the only one that has knowledge.
And it becomes firsthand, not hearsay.
No, yeah, it's firsthand. It's in your hands, and it's no longer hearsay. see, the thing is, but the document itself is physical knowledge. It's called knowledge. And if you don't have knowledge, you're ignorant. And ignorance of the law is no excuse. When you possess the knowledge, nobody else can speak about Curtis Richard Kallenbach ever. Right. Because I'm the only one that is an expert witness on that character.
Well, since you have knowledge, I guess you have knowledge, and you become the tree of truth. That just sort of fits in my head.
Isn't that funny though? In the Garden of Eden, it says that they got kicked out of the garden, i.e., the biblical realm. They got kicked out from eating the fruit of the tree of knowledge.
The truth and knowledge.
The tree of knowledge. So, and what is fruit? Fruit is child. Fruit is character. The fruit is something that is begotten from something else. So the fruit of the tree of knowledge is actually the name that everybody's afraid of. But when you possess the rights to the name can't hurt you.
Right.
When you possess the rights to the name, everything involved with that character is private, and you never ever have to worry about it being claimed as a public utility, as a public official, as a public this, as a public that. There's the difference between public and private. When you possess a document, you are in the private as long as you maintain your right to privacy, which is a tort.
Right.
It's a tort action.
And I guess since if you had children underage, that would be the fruit of your labor, and that'd be probably a good idea to make a claim, huh?
Hey, here's a question. Yeah, going down that path. Look at, if I possess my physical, the title or the deed to my physical body, i.e. the land of my soul, where my soul resides. Look at, if they have paper that say that my body's in D.C. or in Rome, where does my spirit go? It goes back there. That's the only place it can land, is in my body. So if they have the rights to my body, that's where my spirit is. That's where I reside. There's your residence, folks. Oh, I don't live in D.C. Yes, you do. If that paper's in D.C., you reside in D.C.
10 miles square. Everybody, they pulled everybody in by bringing you into the public. So we've been in the public. Now you get to go back home to the private, and they have no business with putting out dictates for the private. You're right, Curtis. Let me expound upon, you're saying, is there a function to protect the property? But if you're on the wrong side of the fence, they're protecting it for themselves. If you're on the right side of the fence, i.e. you're in the private for real, then they have to protect you because you become the landed estate. So I just wanted to cover that a second because I know some people probably escaped him a little bit. It's until you've come home, until you perfected the interest in the title, you can't go in their courts and play ball with them because they're going to beat your brakes off and draft you for performance. I've covered this so many different times, but that's why they get you lock, stock, and barrel, because they have that can be proven must be proven, and this is why the authentication process. But hey, Curtis, let's take a look at if you got the John Kerry, it says to thy, what is it? Something about presence, and then it says the good faith and credit. Do you have that in front of you?
Yeah. Let me get it. Hang on.
Yep. Yeah, I think to all whom these presents come, I think it says it right on that. Well, that's your present, brother. You got your present.
Yeah, that's what it says. It says, to all to whom these presents shall come, greetings. What's funny, though, is it says, I certify that the document hereunto annexed is under the seal of the state, and it says states with an S, of Illinois, and that such seals are entitled to full faith and credit. By the way, when it's bound up like this with this brass ring,
yep,
that is closure.
Yes.
That means that the certificate of live birth is sealed. It's sealed. It can't be opened again, and it's in my hands. So they cannot bring this out into the public, out into a public court case ever without my permission.
Right.
By the way, when I keep talking about torts, I'm going to go to the restatement of torts, the second restatement, and this is where people love to see this stuff. What it says, general principle. What is it? This is the tort. What is it? This is actually about invasion of privacy, but it says one who invades the right of privacy of another is subject to liability for the resulting harm to the interest of the other. And here it is. The right of privacy is invaded by 1, unreasonable intrusion upon the seclusion of another. 2, appropriation of the other's name or likeness. 3, unreasonable publicity given to the other's private life. And 4, publicity that unreasonably places the other in a false light before the public. Let me read this. Appropriation of name or likeness. One who appropriates to his own use or benefit the name or likeness of another is subject to liability to the other for invasion of his privacy. Listen, if you don't have an authenticated birth record, you can't make a tort claim because somebody else is administrating that account and somebody else actually has a claim to the land that has the name attached to it.
Yep.
Now, you know what that is? Think about this. Think about the land under your house. There's a house and there's the land. The land is what the house is sitting on. The house is called an appurtenance. The house is called an appurtenance. It's appurtenant to the land. It's sitting on the land. It's part of the land. Well, Kallenbach, the house of Kallenbach, is sitting on my physical DNA. Right. It's a part of my land. If I don't have the title to my land, then somebody else also has a claim upon my house.
Right.
See, that's where all this stuff gets crazy, as everybody says, I'm the house of this, I'm the house of that. Yeah, but your land is in the possession of the Roman Catholic Church under the administration of the federal government.
Yep, your title is still outstanding and sitting over at their house, and you're infringing upon that house because you haven't stepped to the head of the line. You got to go to the head of the line. You got to become the king, like you say.
So let's go through. I said appropriation of names or likeness. There are 4 things to this tort. Okay. Intrusion upon seclusion. I'm sitting down here in the basement. It's a sunny day, but I have to be on this call. So actually, I don't. I volunteered.
Thank you.
But yeah, okay. So, but here's the thing: is that I'm secluded down here. If I don't want to see anybody, it's my right to not see anybody. That's seclusion. Here we go. One who intentionally intrudes, physically or otherwise, upon the solitude or seclusion of another or his private affairs or concerns is subject to liability to the other for invasion of his privacy, if the intrusion would be highly offensive to a reasonable person. You come into my house, I don't care if you're wearing a uniform. Yep. If I have the right, if I have the title, if I have the deed, if I have an authenticated birth record in my possession, nobody comes into my house. Nobody comes into my land, onto my land. Nobody. That's a true invasion of privacy. By the way, if your title is in the public, do you have a right to privacy if your title's in the public hands?
No.
So everybody needs to stop bitching. Here we go. Appropriation of names or name of likeness. One who appropriates to his own use or benefit the name or likeness of another is subject to liability to the other for invasion of his privacy. 3, publicity given to private life. One who gives publicity to a matter, M-A-T-T-E-R. That's DNA, folks.
Yep.
Something physical. Publicity to a matter concerning the private life of another is subject to liability to the other for invasion of his privacy if the matter publicized is of a kind that A, would be highly offensive to a reasonable person, B, is not of legitimate concern to the public. Is not of legitimate concern to the public. So therefore, if it's in the public, it cannot be private. If that DNA is hanging out there, if that cut off finger is in the District of Columbia, they still have a claim upon it unless I have the title in my possession. Finally, publicity, placing person in a false light. Now, those of you that have listened to Peter and I over the last couple of years, when I say false light, there's the light of day, which is sunlight, which is which is obvious. In other words, your face, you as a man or woman, is obvious in the light of day. That's where supposed Christ lives. The sun lives in the light of day. But after sunset, the light of day sets, the word set, the God set. By the way, there's another word for it called sin. That's where the light of the moon comes out. A false light. That's where shadows exist.
Yes.
And that's where it's confusing. There's confusion in the light of the moon. The lunatics, the lunacy, that's where all that occurs. So
the lunar cycle.
Yeah, that's what it is. By the way, the lunar cycle. Yeah, think about what calendar that is. Anyway, it says one who gives publicity to a matter concerning another that places the other before the public in a false light is subject to liability to the other for invasion of his privacy if A, the false light is which the other was placed would be highly offensive to a reasonable person, and B, the actor had knowledge of or acted in reckless disregard as to the falsity of the publicized matter and the false light in which, in other words, if I'm not Catholic, and I'm not beating on Catholics, I'm just saying if I'm not Catholic and I don't choose to subject myself to all that rigmarole, if somebody places me in a Catholic light and subjects me to the rules of the Catholic system, the Catholic world, the Roman Catholic Church, that is a false light. I don't choose to live that way. Those are not my beliefs. I'm not interested in that. So don't talk to me don't say I'm subject to the Roman Catholic community on a global. That's not my light. I don't live that way. That's not my belief system. So if they throw you into the system, into a community, i.e., birth certificate community that is under the hold of the Roman Catholic Church, if they throw you into that system, then that is an invasion of privacy, your privacy, as long as you can prove that you have an authenticated birth record that takes you out of that light.
Right. If they were published as saying, well, you picked up Curtis for eating bananas on Thursday afternoon. We had a banana eating law. That only applies to slaves. Doesn't apply to you. And then they put it in the newspaper saying, Curtis was busted for eating bananas on Thursday. Well, they just brought the private man into the public, and now that would be considered a tort. Am I on the right track here?
Absolutely. That is a tort. And that's when Jonah Bay talks about injunction. An injunction is actually where you go and you make you're proactive and you get an injunction against everybody else so they can never use your private property, i.e. the name, in the public. So that means they can't stop you, they can't call your name in a courtroom, they can't do anything when there's an injunction, meaning that nobody can ever utter your name. They can't confuse you with their property or anything like that. It's over with. But you have to have physical possession of an authenticated birth record that says, this is my ground, this is my property, and if you act upon my property, you're the trespasser, you're the one that's going to be subject to tort. And by the way, that's where the real man can actually go after. I mean, any one man is above any one corporation. So even the corporation soul known as the Roman Catholic Church is beneath a man. Any one man is above the Roman Catholic Church.
Did you? I don't know if you heard the call with me, and I think it was on the 14th of April. I did a call with Jonah, and he's actually covering how that the all the secretaries of state, I think, and the governors, or I'll have to re-listen to it, but they're all holding positions of corporate souls. Did you know that?
Yeah. Well, look what they did is at your birth, they created an eternal life, a corporate eternal life. And when you give yourself over to Jesus, your Savior, and by the I find it humorous too. By the way, just like Invisible Man and all that stuff, children believe in Invisible Man and friends, invisible friends and stuff. the New Testament Jesus is for children.
Yep.
You have to, that's why they're treating us like children, because so many people believe in this stuff that is not true. And if you want to be a party to the New Testament, then leave all your stuff. Then you'll stay in the welfare state, and you'll pool all your resources, and you'll be your brother's keeper. And you know what? You need to stop bitching, because you live in a communist world. I don't live in a communist world. You do. So just accept the fact that, your salvation comes through the benevolence of the Roman Catholic system. And and the word absolution, until you understand what that means, they have your female half, and you don't get to live. You're not even alive. You can't redeem yourself from the pits of hell without their giving you back your body. And think about that little wafer when they say, this is the body of Christ. They're giving you back the rights to your body, folks. The body and the blood. They're giving you that back because they hold title. They actually have the title. And so through their transubstantiation, you get to believe you're here again until you get caught speeding in their private community and get brought before the judge and have to bend the knee again and plea or pray to their guys in the black robes. This is an ecclesiastical community, as if you choose that path. If you choose the non-ecclesiastical path, and you also choose to be maybe responsible for your own existence. maybe then you should go get the authenticated birth record and stand your ground.
Yep.
Just a thought.
Yeah. Well, the freedom with responsibility. Gee, what a novel concept.
Yeah. Yeah. Novel. What a novel concept. Yeah. So let me read expert testimony. Cool. Think about this. Think about if you go in there and you're the one that actually has all the facts on your side, everything else, anybody, including the DA, everybody else has hearsay, because you're the only one that possess the knowledge. You have physical possession of knowledge, and that you have I'm going to go down one other path with the idea of knowledge, because this will blow your mind. But look at this. Expert testimony, opinion, evidence of some person who possesses special skill or knowledge.
There you go.
You're the expert. You're the expert. And nobody else can go above you. You're the expert testimony, but you have to possess the knowledge to be the expert. Now let me do one other thing, because this is where more minds will be blown right now.
Okay, cool.
The world exists in basically two positions: the present and the past.
Yeah.
The future is ridiculous. I don't even like to talk about the future, because that's not relevant. But let's just say the present moment is you and I talking right now, today. The present exists today. From sunrise to sunset, that's the present, the gift of life. And the life only exists in the present. But look at this. And this might be a little bit hard for some people. Sunrise today was the beginning of your life. Sunset is the end of your life. Why? Because tomorrow, when the sun rises again, it's today, right?
Yep.
You only own today. Once today ends and it becomes yesterday, that goes to the record, and somebody else owns the record. So everything you do today is yours, but everything that goes into tomorrow or history belongs to somebody else. And who does it belong to? It belongs to whoever has the title to your story, to your life. And that's the authenticated birth record. What I'm getting at is that you could go buy a house today, and today the house is yours. But when that purchase goes into yesterday, it goes into the record, and the record belongs to the one that has the knowledge, the memory of that act. Remember, you only exist today if you don't have the authenticated birth record. You only have the rights to sunrise to sunset. That's your entire existence. But once today becomes yesterday, it goes into the record, and the record belongs to the one who has the memories, who has the rights to the history. And the only one that has the rights to the history is the one that owns the story of that man's life, or the history of that man's life. And that's the one that has knowledge of that man. and that's the one who possesses the authenticated birth record. So if you have an authenticated birth record, you get to live today, but you get to own everything from today, yesterday, the day before. But you have to have an authenticated birth record in your possession. Otherwise, you don't have knowledge, i.e. memories of anything beyond today. You don't own the memory. You don't own the memory. Somebody else owns the memory. They have the right or the title to the story of your life. That's the book of your life, and that's the book of life. That's the point, is everything. If you don't have the authenticated birth record, you don't have the rights to anything after today. Right. Think about that. You go get married today, and today it's your wife, and you're happy. But tomorrow, all of a sudden, that marriage goes into the record, and it's somebody else's possession. Yep. Now somebody else rules over that because you haven't taken the time to go get your authenticated records and own your life, own the history, his story, your story. You don't have the rights to your story. It goes into syndication. That's, by the way, where all the money goes into the trust, is now the story of your life goes into syndication, just like the Queen wrote an album called News of the World. Everything after today is old news, and that old news goes onto the record, and it belongs to whoever has the rights, the copyrights to your story. And it isn't you, unless you have an authenticated birth record. You don't have the rights to the story. Right. So you don't get to go into the court and say, hey, that's my stuff. No, it's not, because it's in syndication, and that title, that name, that literary property belongs to whoever has authenticated rights, the tort rights, the true rights to that character. Right. If you don't have an authenticated birth record in your possession, you live for today only. And when the sun sets today, it's over with. Your life, it starts over again when the sun rises. You're right back at it. But after today, you own nothing.
Yep.
You own the present. That's it.
Yeah. Well, I'm just, I'm almost, I'm waiting for my stuff to come back from John. Anyways, so that's part of the equation's almost done. But I want to put my physical essence into my affidavit, so I think I'm just going to handwrite that, Curtis. I just got that memo in my head just the last, since we've been talking. I need to do my affidavit, but I want to do it. That's the closest thing in voice is for me to handwrite it, and I'll probably use this special little purple pen because I don't care, and get the jurat on it. But because it takes my energy to put it on a piece of paper instead of typing it up, I'd rather handwrite it. I don't know. That just sort of fits in my head.
Well, what I did with my Paramount claim is I wrote a declaration. Let's go back to that scene in the hospital. Just think about that. When you're on an airplane coming from another country or another territory, a foreign territory, when you first land, the very first place, your first stop is where? Customs. Yeah. So they're asking you, do you have anything to declare?
Declare, yes.
Well, in a federal territory, the same damn thing happens. We just don't realize it. In my case, Mom stepped off the soil of Illinois, the Republic soil of Illinois, and into federal corporate territory called Swedish American Hospital. Yeah. So she stepped into, and she was carrying a package in her womb, but she didn't declare it coming in. She didn't declare it going into federal territory. So this little package, this parcel, for those of you that are in real estate, this parcel, and so while she's in the federal territory, she forgets this package there. I mean, so a baby Curtis he gets wrapped up and taken home, and he goes back to the soil of Illinois, but there's no record of that. What's left behind, the afterbirth is left behind in federal territory. Now that's the package, that's what's delivered, that's what they have. That was not declared either. So think about this. I was not declared going in, I was not declared going out. The afterbirth was not declared coming in, so they don't know whose it belongs to. They don't know whose it is.
It's abandoned property, correct?
It appears to be abandoned, even though it really isn't. But
right.
So it appears to be abandoned. So what do? It's listed as a foundling child, and it goes down that path. The point is that it's not declared. It's never been declared. So what really has to happen is a declaration should be made. And if you look up declaration in Black's Law, it'll tell you an awful lot how important a declaration is. But here's the thing. for the paramount claim, which I put into the record, and that's my allodial claim to my physical body, which is a combination of mom and dad, which is not the same thing as their birth record.
No,
it's not the same.
Because
and then
theirs is only half the coin.
Yeah, they only have one side of the coin.
Right.
And there's always two sides to the story, two sides of the coin. Well, the reason I'm saying a declaration is I wrote an absolutely beautiful 1-paragraph declaration that was very specific to the paramount claim. So I declared to the world, and in their federal record, I declared my property, my physical body, as mine, and it's private. I actually say it's private. My body is private. Yep. Now, but the other thing is that we also know that when you have authenticated birth records in your possession, there is another process, and I'm not going to go down to Minnesota 220 rule, because what you really want to do is you want to have your possession of those documents certified. And the only way to do that is to acknowledge be right there in front of somebody that is qualified, and the county recorder would be a great one, because that's the door that you entered. But you take those two documents, you go before the county recorder, and you say, I am acknowledging possession of these documents, and I need you to certify my possession, my acknowledgement. So I'm writing a certification of acknowledgement that the county recorder can actually sign off on, and then that certification will go onto the record that I have possession of these documents. Now, so I'm writing a certification that the county recorder can sign that proves, because her as witness, she's witnessing my possession. I'm not doing it.
And also, you bring your original authentication so she can visually see it. So she can, on that declaration, she can verify your declaration because you're carrying your title.
I'm physically in possession of the very documents. I'm holding the documents in my possession and physically. So I brought something that was frozen in the past in September 19th, 1960. I actually brought it forward into the present moment. So my past and my present have now merged. There's not two of me out there. There's not one lost in the past and one in the present. I've merged. I'm only one person. I'm only one now. I'm not 10 million. I'm not part of any bundle, on the market anywhere. I have taken myself out of the game 100%. And the last piece of the puzzle would be if for those people that want to attempt to reckon the books, you would probably want to do a forensic accounting, but you have to jump through all the other hoops first you get a forensic accounting, close the door, close the book, and walk away with whatever value external to their dome, their domicile, their Roman dome, domestic world, whatever you want to call it. But and whatever that value is, remember, your name has been in syndication since your birth.
Yep.
So for 55 years in my case, or your case, 54, almost 55 in my case, that name has been in syndication.
Yep.
And that the syndicate is a Roman Catholic Church. But they used to hold title to it. But anyway, it's your money. My God, I forgot to tell you about this.
Okay.
So I want to prove. I don't like just talking off the top of my head, but I want to prove. For those people that don't quite get it, the fact that the war is over. Let me prove that real quick. I'm going to the wait a minute. The best place to find it is right here.
All right.
I have a letter here. Let me just get that up real quick.
Cool.
And I want to prove that the war is over, and I'm going to do it through the what is it? The Libra code. For those people that, here we go. This is the Libra code is actually called General Orders 100. But anybody that is using the Libra code or thinks that there's a military government in play, there is and there isn't. There is, meaning that because of the war between it's the Civil War. The civil means Roman, by the way. Because of the Roman War, where the battle goes on for your land, and that land is either going to make it to America or it's going to stay with the Roman Catholic Church. That's where that's the war. The war is either you make it to America or you're lost overseas in Rome. But here we go. Section 2 of the Liber Code: public and private property of the enemy. And that's section 2, protection of persons and especially of women, of religion, the arts and sciences, and then punishment of crimes against the inhabitants of hostile countries. So I'm going to read a little bit of Article 31 under section 2, public and private property of the enemy.
All right.
It says a victorious army appropriates all public money, seizes all public movable property, blah, blah, blah. The last sentence of Article 31 says the title to such real property remains in abeyance during military occupation until the conquest is made complete. Let me say that again. The title to such real property remains in abeyance until the conquest is made complete. Black's Law, 5th edition. This is conquest. In feudal law, acquisition by purchase, semicolon, and here it goes. Any method of acquiring the ownership of an estate other than by descent. In other words, when you regain physical title, when you physical possession of that document that evidences the real property, the real estate, when you physically have that in your possession, you have conquered. The conquest is over. You have now acquired ownership of the estate, and you've done it. I mean, through using your brain.
Yes.
Through using your brain, and it goes on to say in Article 38, private property, unless forfeited by crimes or by offenses of the owner, can be seized only by way of military necessity for the support or blah, blah, blah. Here's the last line of Article 38. If the owner has not fled, the commanding officer will cause receipts to be given, which may serve the spoliated owner to obtain indemnity. It says, if the owner has not fled. What does that mean?
Right, because this is huge. That's freaking huge. I can't even believe you just read that. Folks, I get what you just said, bro.
You need to stand your ground. You have to have title in hand and say, I'm sorry, but I'm not fleeing my kingdom.
Right, but we got those folks over on the other side of the pond saying lose a name. Well, guess what? Lose a name, and they get to do with you whatever you want because they're still considered abandoned property. But this is huge, Curtis. Now you're no longer in war, like you say. So
conquest is complete. It's over.
Right.
The property is no longer in abeyance. It's in your possession, and you're the lawful owner. It was always intended for you. Listen, when Mom created that amniotic sac around that zygote, who else did she create it for but you?
Yeah.
You're always been the intended owner of that property. Your mother did without the zygote. Your mom doesn't start creating an amniotic sac on her own. She specifically and exclusively created that DNA property for that child, for you. That's your ship. That's your vessel. It may not be part of your body, but it's your property.
Would that make us the captain?
You're the captain.
I'm your captain, that little Grand Funk Railroad.
My God, people need to listen to that song.
Great song. It is a great song. I listen to it all the time. I do my power walks. But Curtis, this is huge. This is I'm going to be sharing this over with Brother Boris and Jim because they know about the spoliated owner type stuff and whatever, but I don't think they got quite to this part of the message. So I'll show that over to you. It's huge. This is freaking huge.
If you don't have title to it, the war is going to continue. But once it's in the actual owner's hands, listen, the idea of a trust, Yeah, I'm sitting right across from you right now, at least on screen. If I could hand you a book, if I handed you my book, I establish a trust. I give you my private property, you hold it for me. Now, as holder, you're the fiduciary acting in trust for my property. Now, what's funny about that is when you hand the book back to me, the trust is gone. I now have the trust property back in my possession. In other words, the principle of the trust, the book, is now back into possession of the owner, the true owner. Well, when I have the authenticated birth record in my hands, I have everything. I not only have the body, the land, but I also have the title that says I'm the true owner. So, I mean, the trust is now collapsed. There is no trust.
Right.
The owner now has possession. It's called complete legal title, by the way. But I have possession of both the land and the title, and it's over with. There is no trust.
And the fact that you made a declaration, you did your divine proportion claim, you really pulled all the pieces of the puzzle. You pulled yourself together again, and literally came back home whole.
That's called integrity. Do you realize that if they have your finger in D.C.
Yep.
and you're saying, hey man, I mean anything that comes out of your mouth, they're going to say this man has no integrity because he's not all together. By the way, can you be sovereign if you're separated?
Nope.
No, there is no way to be a sovereign man if you're separated, if there's two of you. And how about the idea of a bipolar, the male and the female? How about the idea of schizophrenia, where you have two personalities in two different locations or two different ideas of who you are? You realize that all this stuff, how about sanity versus insanity? People don't realize that when you have an authenticated birth record and you stand your ground, the entire book of magic disappears. By the way, another giant thing is that when they're no longer administrating over this estate, the Black's Law Book doesn't apply. Their language doesn't even apply to you anymore because you're the king, and you can speak Urdu. You can speak anything you want in your kingdom.
Yep.
Black's Law is no longer valid. Their words mean nothing when you're the king. When you're the king.
And you hold your title and say, like I say, who's got a superior claim to I don't think anybody here does. So somebody, this is a private matter. Why am I here? That's literally how anybody should put this thing to bed. But if you can't, and like I say, I have a friend of mine. She did her authentication. They railed her anyways because they tested her because she didn't know how to stand on her tile.
You need, that's why I mean, my biggest fear all the time is, and that's why I quit doing these things, because, somebody says, hey, I did that paramount claim. Yeah, but you don't know what it is. You got to know what this stuff actually means. And this is not about paper. This is about conduct. I mean, the paper actually, like I said, that's the government de facto. That's all that is facts that prove your stand. And that's where standing is. If you don't have the paper, you can't prove you have a body. And that's what they've done. They've divided the house. They divided the male from the female. It's called divorce. But a house divided cannot stand. If you don't have land, look, here's an idea. What is a spirit without a body? It's a ghost. What is a body without a spirit? It's a cadaver. Either way, they're both dead. Either the spirit without a body is dead, the body without a spirit is dead, and that's separation of church and state right there. And that piece of paper evidences such separation, and that's the government de facto.
That's huge. Well, it's huge. Folks, this is exciting. And you're hearing it here first, and the whole point is, like I say, this isn't for everybody. This is a spiritual walk because you will get tested. And even though that's detestable, it's still, you're going to get tested. And that's why I keep telling people, I can't put my mind in theirs, Curtis, nor can you put your mind in theirs. So you and I, we stand in our own right. We know who the hell we are. But we've been doing this walk for a little while. This is not a 5-minute McDonald's quickie meal. We've been doing this shit for years.
Well, I mean, what is it, 215? This is my 6th year. If it goes into 216, it'll be 7. I'm weeks. I'm already done. I guess I should just tell people that this is not, you're not getting out of anything. All you're doing is you finally have something you can stand on, and everybody says, I need standing. I need to do this or that for my status to correct it. No, you don't. I mean, all you need to do is remember, this is a de facto situation. The courts, and since 1938, have cared about nothing but facts. And as long as you can just prove your case and stand in a private place, take that evidence that you have, look the judge in the eye as a king would look, and actually he should bow to you. I mean, at this point, that judge should be afraid of what you could do to that courtroom. But what I'm getting at is you take that document and you look at it and say, this is a private matter, Your Honor. With all due respect, I will not commingle private matters with public matters. And you know what? We're either going to chambers or this is a tort action. I mean, this is commingling public and private, but you got to know what you have in your hands. You can't just let the paper speak, because, you know, that's not going to work for you. This is somebody that actually knows, has knowledge both in their head and physical knowledge in their hands. That knowledge, you know, like you said, it's now in your hands. Your life is now in your hands.
Yep. And I don't need no handouts.
No, and they've taught us for generations now that we're supposed to be, two things. Number one is we're not supposed to talk to strangers, and number two, you know, we're supposed to be we're supposed to give away everything and help everybody as we go. Listen, as a private man, you can help anybody you want, but if all your stuff's in the public, then everybody's taking all your stuff. They're taking your stuff and handing it to the neighbor. You don't even have an option. It goes out of your hands. It's out of your hands, and it's administrated over by people that are flying around on private jets, doing all kinds of stuff, spending all of the money of the American people, and they're doing it while remember, they're just watching over the children of the welfare state. Because nobody wants to be responsible. They do, but they don't realize that you can't be chasing that false money, that false god, what is it actually? The American Idol, or better yet, the graven image that they created. You know, it's only dead when it's in their hands. When you have the title, it's alive. I mean, think about that. They have DNA that matches 50% of your existence. In their hands, the title matches the afterbirth. In your hands, the title matches your body. I mean, do you realize that in your hands, it's alive? It's alive. In their hands, it's a decedent, or it's dead. So the same title reflects two different positions. One reflects death. In their hands, it's death. In your hands, it's life. It's the same damn title.
Hey, you're coming back from the damn dead. You know, you just gave I'm alive. I'm thinking of Frankenstein. You know, that movie with Mel Brooks, Frankenstein. Anyways, that's where my brain goes off on rides when you start saying words. Just like you know, you'll say something, and you know, living in the past, and then I'm going to tunology. You know, see, because you and I we tune up all the time. You know. Oh
yeah, but I mean, this stuff. People need to stop thinking in a linear fashion. In other words, A to B to C to D to E. That's the courtrooms. That's their job. They think in linear. Look at the afterbirth. I'm not kidding. There's you. I mean, mom and dad lay together. They create a zygote. The zygote turns into a fully formed, fully functioning being. But the afterbirth that's around it is secondary. It's created after the fact. After the fact. Let me say it again. After the fact. So the fact of the matter. You're number one, and the afterbirth is number two. And I mean it. It's a little shit.
Yep.
But look at this. So you go into the courtroom and you perfect their title. So you're acting through number two. So if you start to yell and scream and holler, you're out of order.
Right.
Can number two come before number one?
None. Never.
No. So even if you think along these lines, you realize that if you're acting as the number two brother, if you're acting as Abel instead of Cain, then you're out of order automatically, because number one has to be first. Before number two can exist, number one has to be there. So you're automatically out of order. That's contempt.
Everybody wants to put the cart before the horse, don't they?
Well, that's kind of what's happening here. As the afterbirth is the cart before the horse. The horse is your physical land or your body, and you know, you don't fuck the cart.
yeah. We don't need a cart. I can drag my own ass around the planet. So.
No, but that's my point, is that people need to stop thinking linearly to find the answers. I mean, if you draw a dot on a piece of paper and a circle around the dot, that some people will see a dot inside of a circle. I see a bubble. I see a sphere with a dot in the center of it. I mean, right. if you can learn in all directions from that point in space, as opposed to in a flat two-dimensional plane, you're going to be a lot better off. You're a lot better off. You got to think outside. I hate using that outside the box, but ultimately that's a good way to say it. I think outside the cube. You know, I mean, the outside the box is good, but I mean, if you just add the z-axis, you got three dimensions. I mean, the box is XY, but if you think of a z-axis, now you're off the page. That's called ascension.
Yep.
You've ascended off the two-dimensional page. Now you've ascended into 3D, which is where your physical body is.
Well, isn't it ironic, Curtis? I've been drawing 3D squares my entire life. I said, am I inside the box? Am I outside the box? But I always do the 3D and do the nice line. I don't know why. I like the 3D, but it's the power of force. And see, I get the mathematical equations. I get the construct, how this all fits. You and I, we understand the numbers. I know this escapes most, but it's really, I guess I got the memos. I was getting them pretty young because I would always draw 3D squares. Yeah, and I am Peter Peg, P-E-G, square peg in the round hole, and I actually fit because I'm sacred geometry. The square peg fits in the round hole.
Yeah. Well, I guess the whole thing, and I mean, we've been talking, or I have pretty much nonstop since 3 o'clock, but you know, this is so giant. I mean, and God bless some guys, you know, I mean, some of the brightest guys in the world, but they're in some cases, they're too bright. You know what I mean? And I like to say to people, I mean, again, in a linear fashion, if your first step is in the wrong direction, it doesn't matter what you discover along the way because you're on the wrong path. You'll never get to where your ultimate goal is if your first step is in the wrong direction. So again, the greatest research in the world, but with the direction off, or the azimuth, or whatever you want to call it, you know, the degree. If you're off by degree, you're never gonna reach what your ultimate goal is. Which, I mean, we already have freedom. We already have freedom. It's just being administrated by somebody else.
Right.
You realize that everybody's free, but their freedom is being administrated by somebody else in a federal territory because you've never actually declared your life. You've never actually gone in and saved your life yourself. You've never gone in and grabbed up the only piece of paper that evidences your existence, which is an authenticated certificate of live birth. That's the thing that evidences your existence.
Yep. Well, folks, anyways, Curtis, geez, what a ride. My brain is, you know, you and I would get on these calls, and my brain always gets to go to all these other portals. Like I'm not in enough already. Jeez. Yeah, I'm covering all the constructs. Curtis, this was incredible. Now, I'm glad you brought this forward. Folks, this is new to you. And yeah, Curtis is over at Walk the Talk. He's got a link over there. And I know you probably haven't been doing too much with that. And I know you're probably going to go a little on the quiet side here in the near future. But yeah, I guess we need to deal with that. You know, I don't know. I don't think I want to wait around for this to get. I'm going to do what I have to do, but I think I need to go through the front door of the registrar's office when I finish what I need to finish, so that she can certify my declaration. He or she.
Yeah, that's and you know what? Again, that's paper, and you need to have all the evidence in this de facto situation. By the way, that's a tough word for me. When I say situation, it's not de facto. It's always de facto, but it depends on where the paper's situated. If it's situated in my possession on the soil of Illinois, then it's the Republic, and it's the rules. It's the Constitution of Illinois, the Constitution of the United States, and all the stuff that actually protects everything is in place. If it's in the possession of the Department of State as fiduciaries for the Roman Catholic Church, then it's someplace else. It's disposition. It's a disposition. It's no longer in a correct position. It's a disposition. It's in a different situation, a different situs, a different location. It's not where you're not where you think you are.
Well, hey, Curtis, let's take a look at this. Instead of you being upright and walking and breathing, you're actually laying down. You're horizontal. You're dead.
Well, you certainly can't stand up if you don't have form. You know, that's another thing that I should cover because we have a couple minutes. We have 20 minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
Look, when I say that, you know, mother offers, according to even the Roman Catholic Church says, mother is substance. She gives substance. Now, don't get me wrong. So does dad. I mean, even though it's just a sperm, it's still substance. But the Roman Catholic Church says mother actually offers substance, while father offers form. Right. Now, let's go back to that a second. Mother cannot create a child on her own. Now, a child construct can come out of that mass of afterbirth, because they call it a live birth. They call it born alive. They call it a human person. So the legal system created a construct from the left behind matter that has no biological father. remember, the afterbirth is pure mitochondrial or pure mother DNA. It is not. There is no biological father to the afterbirth, which makes it, for you biblical people, it makes it an immaculate conception.
Yes.
It makes it I mean, mom or mother creates this child with who? With what? God? So even this is just a pile of muck, folks. The afterbirth's a pile of muck, but they call it a legal child. It is actually a child of God. As deformed as it is, or as unformed as it is, it's still considered a legal child. And so that child is institutionalized forever, basically, because it doesn't have form. It doesn't have male form. Dad's sperm never got in there and actually gave it 2 arms, 2 legs, a body, a brain, a heart, and everything else. It doesn't exist in form. So the mother, the church, has substance, but it has no form. So what does the father state do? The father state creates form through paper, which is called forms. So when a man fills out a form and it says father, well, then that substance, that golem, that shape-shifting matter becomes father in the court system, or it becomes doctor, or it becomes anything. Whatever, taxpayer, whatever it is, the form itself is the paper word that gives shape to the substance. So the paper is the form, and the paper comes from the state, which is the father. So the state father gives form to the church DNA afterbirth matter. So now you have this golem that's just a puddle of muck, a puddle of mud, and what do? The paper comes in and says, oh, that's the father. Oh, so now that DNA becomes father, legal father, not actual biological father, but legal father to whatever's happening. So they actually give form through paper to that afterbirth material. So now you have form and substance on that construct, that legal construct side of the equation. So, and I wanted to get that out because also remember that the word immaculate conception. Immaculate means perfect. Conception means idea. Tell me that this system is not a perfect idea to enslave an entire planet.
Oh yeah, and and I want to double back on information. Look at sort of like denomination. We talked about that a year and a half ago. So look at information. You are it's like the military, for crying out loud. Information. Get information, gentlemen. We're going to go on a march.
Well, that's what they do is they take that paperwork that I say mother, but at this time she's an author, because the paperwork becomes literary property, which gets deposited. I have so much evidence now that it shows that the DNA matter, part of it or all of it or whatever goes into a museum. I don't know. I'm going to call it the Smithsonian, and that's subject to the rule of Great Britain, by the way, and always was, because it was brought over here. The Smithsonian was British property then. It's British property now. So imagine your DNA going into this, or not your DNA, but the afterbirth DNA going into Americana. I mean, as being collected as Americana and brought into the library, the Smithsonian Institution, which is, ruled over by the Bar Association, which is called a charitable institution, charitable organization, working with charity cases, which is what these institutional afterbirth children, orphan children are. But anyway, and then what about the story? What about the literary property? The actual story of your life that's on the record. Where does that go? Well, that goes to the Library of Congress. And the last, L-A-S-T, the last name is the name, or is the succession or lineage that it goes on the shelf. That book of your life is in the Library of Congress as a last name, and they rule over that last name. By the way, the Library of Congress is actually called the Library of Last Resort. Yeah, so it's where the lasts, all of the lasts resort. But what's funny about a last is also it's the way cobblers make shoes. It's a form that makes shoes, which is interesting because the whole idea if the shoe fits, wear it. So if Kallenbach is a shoe, a form, a last made for me to wear, almost like Cinderella. You know what I mean? But think about that. if I put on these shoes, if I put on the character, if I walk in those shoes, then I'm subject to a certain set of rules because I'm wearing the clothing, the garb, the suit, the whatever you want to call it, of a character that belongs in the Library of Congress, which is syndicated character, and it goes, and that's where all the financing, that's where all the work, that's where all the money is. But what I'm getting at is when you hold physical title to this record, then nobody can make a claim upon you at all or can control you, but you have to know what it is and you have to know how to stand your ground. You can't just do this stuff and think it's going to be magic because they're going to wear you down.
Yeah.
They're going to wear you down. Scary.
Right now everybody's last in line, and but when you complete this process, you become first in line if you can stand on your square.
You got, and that it's funny because if you're playing the part of number 2, you know, who does number 2 work for? Anyway, I mean, you know, I mean, that's out of Michael Myers and you know, that whole situation. But I mean, number 2, mini-me. Right. You know, it's just that's the afterbirth. That's
he's a little shit.
He's the little shit that looks like you. He basically has your DNA, but and that's the little afterbirth. That's the, I mean, but my point is we're laughing about this, but again, a week and a half ago, a buddy of mine called me from Ohio and said, "Yep, Kurt, the recorder, the county recorder said that she works for the parish, she works for the church, and that the DNA that's collected for the birth certificate person is female. So again, Curtis Richard Kallenbach is female. It doesn't matter what name's on there; it's all female."
Well, all you got to do is man up. We've been talking about telling people to man up since we started this game.
Well, there's no man in America. There's not a single man in America, because if America consists of all birth certificated persons and no man has made a claim to his certificate, well, there are now, but I mean, if the church has that evidence in their possession and you don't merge the two, if you don't take the female and merge it with your man, then those two stay separated. And so now Curtis Richard Kallenbach, when that paper's in my possession, that they're no longer separated, severed, divorced, whatever, and now I'm whole. And so Curtis Richard Kallenbach takes on a male aspect, you know what I mean? As opposed to being bipolar, it's singular. It's singular, or solo, if you want to use a better word.
Well, and now you merge the male-female, so you come into harmony. You're no longer in disarray.
Right.
You're no longer a bitch, and that's a good thing. So,
well, that's what they say, though, that the separation, what is it? It's the separation of the analytical, the mind, from the body or the substance. And what they've done is, I mean, they treat us like animals because they actually have paper that says all they have is body. The mind is separated. The mind is the capital of your existence. I mean, your mind, think about this. Your body has both the capacity. It has your brain. It has your heart. It has, I mean, your heart has the soul. It has the spark at the SA node. It also has the mind, the brain, which actually is only the receiver for, consciousness. But if they have the deed to the land, they have the body.
Yeah.
All that you have is evidence of the spirit. If they have the deed to the body, all you evidence is the spirit. Now, what's funny about that is now I don't want people to get excited about this, but they will, and that's this. If you have possession of the deed to the land, your physical body, then you have all the rights to the intellectual product and all the rights, the private rights to the intellect, the private rights to the physical. So all of your labor now is private. No private property is taxable. So your labor is not taxable anymore. And so the whole idea is that, remember that the IRS is the collection plate for the Roman Catholic Church. And they have all the rights to do what they're doing. See, I don't have any problem with what the IRS does, because the IRS is only acting upon church property.
Yeah.
It does not act upon a private man. It can't, because they don't have the right to do that. So, I mean, a private man has the right to his intellect and a right to his physical product, and also the right to his physical product, meaning progeny, like children.
Yes. So, because it took labor to make them little stinkers too,
Well, that's what do you think this more perfect union is? What they have is they have a labor union that's completely that is all women. I mean, it's all females. It's mitochondria. It's female to female to female.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's female. So the labor union is creating new product or new matters. And that's the afterbirth characters. Because we never know that this other stuff's out there, so we let that stuff lay on the ground. We walk away from it, just like the Christian TV show or series or books called Left Behind. Well, the Left Behind matter is the Christian character. That's what's left behind on the earthly plane, and it's in purgatory. It's in hell.
Yeah.
Until you collect it back, you get to go down there, go to hell, go get your stuff, pull it out of purgatory, which is called an exorcism if you want, but you're actually redeeming yourself by your own hands. Go get this authenticated birth record, learn what it means to have it, and learn what it means to actually own your life. Own your life for the first time ever.
Yep. Wow. No, you said a mouthful, bro. No, yeah. But I love having you on on the show because I get to coast a little bit and sort of sit back and digest as you blow up all the neurons in my damn brain, because I always get the shit that you bring forward. Anyways, folks, we're about we got down about the last 2 minutes. Curtis, anything else you want to throw out to the folks to get them on the right path? The path they've chosen is not the one they're on. They need to. Yeah, well, it's like I say, it's all free will. I don't know. Everybody can go back home again, though. And I know everybody's saying, well, we want to see it first, for all those from the show me state. Even when you show them the show me state folks, they're just going to sit back and do nothing anyways, because it just gives them an excuse not to do anything. This is not for the meek by no means. So, but you know what? The upside is we have lots that are just like you and me who are bringing up the rear. No pun intended, by the way.
I'll close my mouth after this statement. This is not about paper. I mean, you have to have the paper in the de facto government. You have, in other words, to prove that you are the de facto government, you have to have the paper. But here we go. The thing is you need to learn this stuff. Do not go out and attempt to do anything unless you know what you have in your hands. Yeah. I keep telling people this is not about paper. This is about Z-axis ascension. You learn what the paper represents, and then you stand your physical ground with the evidence that you have in hand. It's it. It's over with once you know what this is all about.
Yeah. Well, on that note, we're down to 10 seconds, I think. 10, 9, 8. Anyways, Brother Curtis, thank you so much. Brother, this will probably be the last of your disposition of for a bit anyways. John Galt will be your new alias, I guess.
See ya. Thank you. I'll talk later.
Thank you. Love you, brother. Thank you very much. Bye-bye, folks. Thank you.
If you really had to make a difference on a large scale with minimal resources, how would you go about it? Have you ever dared to dream of doing that which seems impossible? On a planet steeped with corruption and destruction, the question beckons: how do we change it? Media has a far-reaching impact on people and has been used to manipulate humanity into our current destructive patterns. In order to affect people into moving into constructive patterns of behavior, we need to construct a new paradigm of media. Conscious Consumer Network has been created with the explicit intention of giving the amazing truth-seeking, solutions-orientated, alternative media a place to fully realize their true potential with a cutting-edge, high-tech professional media platform. In turn, some of the greatest freedom-seeking hearts and souls of our time have realized the true potential of what has been created and have come together to provide their insight and inspiration on CCN. Conscious Consumer Network has become a unique, interactive information and educational network which provides a free-to-view, live-stream, ultra-high-definition channel to the world and features 25 live shows a week and growing with the addition of multiple language broadcasts. CCN has features comparable with mainstream media, such as being able to pause and rewind broadcasts whilst being live-streamed. Catch up on missed or previous broadcasts, now available from CCN high-definition downloads. You can now purchase a high-definition download of your favorite CCN show from ethymarket.com. Support free and independent media by becoming a monthly pledger. This can be done with a monthly pledge of €10, which will allow you unlimited access to CCN's high-definition downloads, which hosts a back catalogue of over 250 shows which have been aired since the launch of CCN on the 1st of January 2015. In order to keep CCN free of corporate sponsorship and advertising, CCN has launched the Pledge 300 campaign. This is a realistic goal with the hopes of securing a minimum of 300 people who will each pledge €10 a month. With this number, we can continue to grow and operate and potentially expand into a second foreign language channel. Help keep alternative media in the hands of the people. We thank you for supporting free and independent media.